Three, two, one.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Corey Thompson from Dice Tower Dish, Above Board TV, and all things news.
And this is the Podfather of Gaming, Stephen Bonacore. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 304, and we're recording this on January 25th, 2024. Board Games Insider is proud to be powered by Board Game Geek. So
Woo!
Corey, who's not here again? Ignacy. So he
Oh, Ignacy,
promised.
right.
Who is he?
He's the intern, right? The guy who brings me coffee with the accent.
I think maybe he's going to be demoted in. So he insisted he was going to be here. He absolutely said he was going to be here for this episode. And then like a half hour before he said, I double booked. I can't make it. I double book. I cannot make it. So he's not here. So we will mock him. We will mock him a lot. And we'll talk about where I am, but I ran into the convention organizer here who said Ignacy reached out to him to say like, why did you invite Bonacore as guest of honor? We're never going to hear the end of it. So we'll talk about that in a
It's
second.
it's kind of true. I mean,
That's true.
I suspect you're going to bring it up at least 8 times.
At least 8, 10 times. What are you
I,
doing, Dr. Thompson? What are you doing? What's going on in your life right now?
oh, it's just been crazy running back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So right now I'm back at the Napa house, trying to put things together for upcoming corporate retreats. I've started using the house to have publishers and industry people come over if they want space to do playtesting or have people scattered all over the US come together in somewhere pretty and just talk. So coming up, we've got corporate retreats here from Cephalofair, Weird Giraffe, Rose Gauntlet. Um,
Did,
Mutual friend Alex Schmidt is coming by
why am I not invited for these things?
because you are running all over the nation being a very special guest for things like that.
Oh, it's
But
great.
I just got back not that long ago from LA where apparently one can get a really inflamed, infected salivary gland. So I never heard of this, but it's not fun.
That is
So
weird, dude.
I left LA early and then recovered here and started just cleaning up the house. I don't know if I mentioned it, but because this house is becoming the board gaming house and has all this cool shelving and storage, we contracted with Locus Science Fiction Magazine, and we have taken as a donation their archival metal shelving. These are giant metal shelves that roll along tracks and will slam all together like you find in libraries.
I, I
So
I thought you mentioned last time that you actually bid on these things. Is that what you did?
they're in
And
my garage now.
oh, okay. So you have to have Barry do another project for you.
It's true because they are not put together. There are metal pieces and gears and tracks everywhere.
Corey's
But
manservant, Barry. He's he's an awesome guy and just he can do anything like with wood and metal and he's just very
it's
handy.
amazing. But I'm
Yeah,
very excited that
yeah.
once these are put together, this is going to be a really interesting storage for thousands of board games. So that'd be amazing.
So do you let people? Is it only the companies that go to your house for the? Are you actually advertising this? I mean, how did this work out that you're becoming corporate retreat central?
A couple people asked, and I think it's super fun. So we had some designer get-togethers. Daryl Andrews and a bunch of designers came by. We had Lucky Duck, who I'm good friends with, brought their people out, and we're playtesting and working with games. So uh, now it's just word of mouth. If one of the industry people wants to come to Napa Valley and stay a weekend and check out new games or do some design, I'm here.
All right,
I think it's fun.
that's it. I'm on my way out. I mean, as soon as this trip is over, and then after the Super Bowl trip, and then after the, I'm
I was
coming
gonna
though.
say you have like 5 trips in a row.
Is it possible to get a reservation these days at French Laundry?
I need about a month ahead of time.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have to arrange that because I have to have that at one time in my life.
There you go.
All right. So over here at the Podfather Gaming, yes, Bonacore is continuing to take crazy trips. So last week I was in New Orleans for the entire week, gaming with friends. It was a great time and epically played Quartermaster General World War II 6 times, literally. You know what my record was in
Wow.
playing Quartermaster General 6 times?
I'm gonna
One,
say you lost every time.
1 and 5. You know you love a game when you play it 6 times and you just keep losing at it. It's so good. The moniker is like World War II, the party game, because you really want to play with 6 people and each playing a major faction of World War II. And that's when the game shines. You can play with 5 or 4 or 3 or 2, but you want to play with 6. Everyone takes a different faction. You play a card, you draw a card, you collect your victory points. It's like that simple, the game, but it's played on a big board and you're moving units, you're attacking and you're placing units around the board. It's just so good. If you want to play an ultralight, like the lightest of war games, and do it in a social atmosphere, Quartermaster General World War II. And this week, I'm at Tantrum Con, and I kind of hinted at that at the top. I'm one of the guests of honor here, and I literally ran into Kevin Delp and Melissa, his wife, and
Yep.
just now, before the podcast, and they said that Ignacy reached out and said, "Why did you invite Bonacore as a guest of honor? We'll never hear the end of it." And he replied back to him. So I love that. Really looking forward to this. And I wasn't coming. I mean, I'd heard of the con, and it's over 1,000 people, so it's not small.
That's
Neither is it
awesome.
neither is it large. But I'm here because there's just so many friends and industry people that were coming, and the podcasters. I'm having dinner tonight with the Rolling Dice and Taking Names guys, Marty and the other guy.
It
That's
sounds
the
so cool. I'm really jealous. It's one that's been on my list. It's just
Yeah.
so far away.
It is. It is. The ongoing joke, Marty and the other guy. It's Marty and Tony from
Yeah.
Rolling Dice and Taking Names. Wonderful people. I'm going to see Rob and Christina Rouse from Blue Peg Pink Peg. Friends from various parts of the country decided to come here because other friends like that were on the Podfather cruise. The Brents, if you remember
Oh
Ashley and Kevin
yeah.
Brent, they live here. Technically, they live in South Carolina, just over the border. We're here in Charlotte, North Carolina, but it's
Oh,
like
that's amazing.
against it, like literally like sits against the border. And we went over their house. They're about a half hour away. Last night, a bunch of people were there. And then today is Thursday and the convention starts at noon. So as soon as this is over, I go and I game to my heart's content and my heart's content with everybody from here. So can't wait. We're going to be doing some VIP games of Thunder Road Vendetta. There's a flip the table competition. I get to literally flip a table to see who's the best table flipper. And then there's a Shark Tank Proto Tank event as well that I'll be participating in. Gonna be epically fun. So more next week once it's over. In the meantime, let's get to the event deck.
All
We're
righty.
going to walk directly over to the Funko article here. So we have big news that we couldn't do last week because we did the predictions last week. Thank you, everybody, for all those great shout outs about the predictions episode. Everyone loves it so much. That Goliath Games has acquired Funko Games assets. So, Corey, this is
Yeah,
pretty big
not
news.
not a straight acquisition. They haven't really bought the company.
Right.
What I hear from the inside is Funko, their games division was struggling. Their games weren't selling as much as intended. Their management was having some trouble. It just was a struggling division. And so Funko, Big Daddy Funko, put the games division up for sale, which
Right.
basically means selling off the assets and all that.
Yeah, so this exactly. So this Funko is huge, and their main
Yeah.
products are those chibi heads, and they
Funko
have
Pops.
Funko Pops, and they have them for everybody else's IPs. They make these things. They've got Lord of the Rings ones. They got Star Trek ones. They got all of these things, and they're in like every store. You can find them everywhere, and they sell
Yeah.
millions of these things.
And their
But
first game that they were putting out was based on those Funko Pop minis, those vinyl figures, was the Funkoverse games. And that was pretty well regarded when it came out years ago.
right, right. But their games division never took off, and it never did particularly well. As we had reported, they were reporting losses and things like that. So they had their board game development studio, Forest Pruzan Creative, and the board game design team from Prospero Hall. They had acquired all of
Right.
that, and now all of that and the games that they had and everything game wise is going to Goliath, who is a very large company
They're kind of the
based in Europe, right?
sleeping giant. Yeah, their biggest title is Rummy Cube, which they've been putting out forever. But Goliath also has sat in the background, and they've done mass market versions of titles from our hobby side. So if hobby has a game that's selling very well and they want to put a version of it in Target or Walmart, they have to set it to a certain price point and make it a
Yeah.
certain size on the shelf. And Goliath has done lots of those conversions. But in recent years, they're making a lot of moves and coming more and more into that border zone between
Yeah.
mass and hobby.
Right. Certainly any of the games that you'd go onto the Geek and take a look at their games, it's all non-highly ranked mass market style games. But as you just mentioned, it looks like they could be making moves directly into hobby. So let's see
No,
what happens with
yeah.
them.
Now the Prospero side is really interesting. Prospero Hall, used to be an independent design group that was used a lot by Ravensburger, and they had big hits like Horrified and Villainous. And then Funko acquired the Prospero group and started using them as their in-house design team. Their games haven't been the greatest. There's some really good ones. Pan Am stands out, but there's been a lot of forgotten games in there.
Yep.
And it seems that Prospero was definitely one of the things that was acquired during this Goliath purchase, but they've also been firing a lot of people. So when Goliath acquired Funko, they did what a lot of companies do when they acquire. They removed a lot of middle management. They've removed a lot of people from the company and in the design team. They're really
Right.
pruning down how many people are now working for Prospero Hall. So unfortunately, a lot of designers have lost their job over
Yeah.
this.
Very, very sad. Let's get tipsy at the end with new Dungeons and Dragons cocktail book, Puncheons and Flagons by Andrew Wheeler. So Penguin Random House is
Oh man.
releasing a D&D licensed cocktail book, which will hit retail mid-year, just after Gen Con, August 27th of this year. And it's officially licensed cocktail book written by Andrew Wheeler. It features recipes for 75 themed cocktails, mocktails, and bar bites that are sure to lighten up any encounter. Some of the more
I
flavorful,
had to throw this in.
yeah,
It's just such a goofy story.
yeah. And it's got great, they got, cocktails named after all the things that we know of from D&D and other tropes and things like that. The Necromancer, the Fairy Fire, Morning
Yeah,
Cup, Boldorian Tonic. It's big. It's a 192 page
I was looking
hardcover.
at that. That's insane.
Only $30 for a 192 page hardcover book.
I see you getting this and throwing a party.
I need you to come over as a bartender though, since
Oh, thanks. The
yeah,
intern. I'll serve drinks.
there we go. There we go. So what do we have next year? Board Game Geek's top ranked game, Brass Birmingham, is getting a sequel as reported on Board Game Wire.
This one, it's a really fuzzy, no details kind of news announcement. It's a tease. So none of us are floored. Brass Birmingham and Brass Lancashire have done very, very well. They are, well, the top rated game. And Brass, just as a game, has been popular much longer than the Roxley version's been out. But yeah, they're teasing that there's a new version that they can't talk about. And I've heard independently, I've heard stories of this, and I've seen some versions of it. So I'm pretty excited about this. People will be really really happy with it.
Yeah, so Gavin, who's the president, Gavin Brown is the president of Roxley Games. He just threw it out as a teaser that it was coming to Kickstarter. Um, in the last quarter of this year. So we got a little while to really find out what's going on with this. But it is a big announcement. As we know, brass the Brass series is at least is designed by Martin Wallace or co-designed. His name is on all the boxes. And of course, I did have drinks and hung out with Martin at BGG Con. So I might have a
Yeah,
little info, but I can't say much myself. But everyone's excited about it because Brass is a huge selling game and in perennially in the top of Board Game Geek. If it's not one, it's two.
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's a real good one. So what else we have here? Okay, so this is another, we reported on this already, at least tangentially, that Mayfair Games is back.
Oh yeah.
Our good buddy Sean Brown is now the president. He's now running the Mayfair Games, or the games that will be coming out under this brand, under this logo. We
Right.
all this old school gamers here know Mayfair because they were the first of the companies in the US that were making hobby games, basically. The games that are approachable, so to speak, not like the Avalon Hill bookshelf things with 64, 128 page rule books, but games that were great hobby games.
Yeah,
And
we're talking back into the 70s and 80s.
mhm. And they are bringing back the Empire Builder series of games, which were like these crayon rail games, and they were other hex placement games on a map, 18xx games. I happened to be hanging out last week with Sean Brown a little bit, and I asked him what I could, what can you tell me on the record? And on the record, he was able to say they're going to do one of the games from the Empire Builder series, one of these train games
Yeah.
every year for the next 10 years, which I thought was a great way to kind of bring back these excellent games. Some a little old school, but excellent, excellent games that deserve to be in print and deserve to have, a modern production value because the older ones were the older production values.
Yeah, I really liked I talked with Shauna about this for a while too, and what I liked is he did his due diligence. He reached out to all of the founding people at Mayfair, all the past presidents, and to the Bromley family, who and Darwin Bromley was the designer of Empire Builders, and
Mm-hmm.
got overwhelming support from a lot of people not in the industry anymore, relatives of people who've unfortunately passed, um, and just got this love and support from everyone who was involved in the original Mayfair. So Sean's coming to it from a place of just love and adoration. He wants to bring
Yeah.
back these games that made so many people happy.
It's exactly what he said to me. He said these games made him a gamer, back in the 70s, back in the 80s. And he is so excited, just from that perspective, to have them in a catalog again and reintroduce them now to the world and to gamers in the, 2020s. So very, very cool. Flat River Group continues to make some big moves in the industry. They are a consolidator distributor in the US, major competitor of all the distributors, as well as like PSI, which on the consolidator side. And
Yeah.
they also publish games. They've got publishers that they've bought. In this case, though, they are partnering with Maestro Media. They've reached a deal that grants Flat River Group exclusive worldwide distribution rights for Maestro Media's English language tabletop games. The new arrangement will see Flat River handling sales, marketing, and event management for Maestro Media's English games, including physical product sales to retailers and distributors. The deal includes Maestro's upcoming Hello Kitty and Smurf games, as well as the company's The Binding of Isaac, Four Souls Requiem. And that was their big, big game.
Binding of Isaac,
Quick.
yeah, was huge. That was a crowdfunding project that did very, very well, kind of launched Maestro Media. I should say Maestro is making some really big moves. The lead designer for Maestro is Daryl Andrews, who's a good friend and has published just hundreds and hundreds of games, really a powerful player in the industry. Also in the design team is Jonathan Gilmore, who's just an absolutely fantastic designer, Dead of Winter, things like that.
Right.
So this is big news for Maestro. They've got so much exciting stuff coming up. So now they've got distribution, so we'll be able to get their games pretty easily.
Very cool. So this is an interesting one. We reported that Evil Genius Games and Netflix were in a legal battle, and now apparently it's been resolved. So Corey, take us through this one.
So Evil Genius originally did a Rebel Moon RPG that was based on a Netflix show, and they sued that they weren't being compensated properly. And there was all this weird accusations going back and forth. Netflix said that they could break the contract because Rebel Moon had, or the info about Rebel Moon had been leaked. They had told the public before Netflix was ready to tell the public, so they broke the contract. The problem is that the meeting where details about this RPG were leaked, Netflix was present at the meeting at Gamma, and they're the ones who leaked it.
Yeah,
It was a nightmare.
It was really weird the way that, what it looked like. Again, we were sitting way on the outside. It looked like Netflix was completely bought into the release of the information that was going to go out. And all of a sudden they said, well, no, you leaked it and you weren't allowed to, therefore we're breaking the contract. So it looked on the surface that they had a good case here. And apparently they've settled. So everyone's happy now. But the one bad thing is the Rebel Moon RPG will not be coming out. So anybody who was looking for that will not be getting that. Were you looking for that, Corey? I was not, but I don't
I
know
am not an indie RPG guy. It's a fascinating corner of the nerdverse that I've never dove into. It's
Right.
something I want to look into. So
Right. So, as a lot of people maybe know out there, one of my favorite games is a broken game, but it's such an amazing game when it's played in the right spirit. And I'm talking about Betrayal at House on the Hill. That first version had so many bugs and flaws and things that just didn't make sense when they might happen during the game. Then they did a new version, and then they did a new version, and then they're on edition 3 now, and it is not broken anymore. It really works very well, and I still love it.
Still kind of broken.
Oh,
it's an amazing story generator, but a
Yes.
lot of the stories are unplayable.
So what's happening here? I disagree, but we're never going to solve that one. You play this game with me and you'll have so much fun. Betrayal at House on the Hill spins out into a standalone card game. So you put this up here, Corey, and this is great to hear that it's Avalon Hill, right? So it's the original publisher, the current publisher of the 3rd edition, and they don't do a lot of games, but it's nice to see that they're actually going to continue the line here because there are fans out there of this game IP.
Well, it makes sense because there was the D&D version of Betrayal at House on the Hill, which was Betrayal at Baldur's Gate.
Yep.
There was an expansion, Widow's Walk, which did fix a lot of the problems in the original. And they did the Legacy version, Legacy Betrayal at House on the Hill, which actually was pretty critically acclaimed. It was a pretty good version.
I am looking for someone to play that with. Paula does not like Betrayal at House on the Hill for whatever reason. She doesn't, the reason she doesn't like it is because she doesn't want to be the traitor in the scenario. She finds that it's too much pressure. Of course, that's my favorite thing to have happen is to go, oh yes, I'm the betrayer. I'm gonna get you guys.
It's a storytelling game.
It is. So anyway, I gotta play the Legacy version. Maybe we'll do it.
So Avalon Hill described Betrayal Deck of Lost Souls as a cursed deck of cards and a speedrun of terror and chaos. So there's not a lot of details here. We don't really know when it might be coming out. This is another kind of teaser story out of Dicebreaker.
This is kind of cool though. There's no information. I don't even know where the Dicebreaker got this information. It was on the Avalon Hill Twitter account apparently that this was kind of leaked, but nothing really giving us any information. But who knows? Maybe we'll see. They
did say we'll get more information in February, and launch is possibly in March.
Oh, that's pretty good because they always have a big presence at Gen Con. So you'd think maybe there we'd see it, but if they're launching early,
Oh,
uh,
I'm sure that they'll play it up at Gen Con.
I'm an insta buyer of this game. All right, so our last news story of the day, it comes from Dicebreaker again. Thank you for scraping so many good stories there, Corey. Dungeons and Dragons is adventuring into its first virtual reality video game.
I'm
What?
I am really excited about this one because one of my favorite video games right now is Demio. Demio is a virtual reality game where you feel like you're actually manipulating miniatures in a really detailed map. And you use cards to cast spells, and it's got this card balance slay the spire kind of feel, but it looks like you're playing with hand painted miniatures on a map. So the team Resolution Games that made Demio has announced that they're doing a Dungeons and Dragons Forgotten Realm VR
That's so cool.
RPG.
So,
So I'm really excited
so
about
could I
this.
let me ask you a question? And because I don't know, we did talk a little bit about Demio back when it was announced a couple of years ago, right? But so this is where you become the character of virtual reality, like you put on the goggles, right? And you're going to manipulate things in a virtual reality, right? And so I'm the fighter and you're the cleric, and we're
The
going
new
in and
one,
monsters show up, right? Is that how it
yeah,
works?
the new one will definitely be something along those lines. But their first game, Demio, you are looking down on a table in
Okay.
a basement with cheap computers and posters on the wall. And on the table is this miniatures setup. And you can pick up the mini of your guy and move him somewhere else and
Oh,
see the monster minis move around, and other players can play at the same time. And it's survive all of these monsters. So Demio is a fantastic title. You can play it not in VR as well. There's no real details on the new game other than they have the D&D license and specifically the Forgotten Realms license.
well, definitely will be interesting. More to come on this one. Very excited to hear about it. But in the meantime, let's get over to strategy and tactics. All right, we have a question here from Tilla Masseria at TM Masseria. Um, this is a gaming etiquette question. All of you attend a lot of conventions. Yes, we do. Do you think it is ever okay to quit a game? For example, if a player has crippling AP or is being aggressive. All right, so you
Oh,
definitely
there's a lot of viewpoints on this, and
there's
I've
yeah.
heard this argument a whole bunch of
Go,
times.
go ahead,
I
Curry. What do you
know a
think?
lo- I know a lot of people who feel that if you're not having fun, it's okay to say, this game isn't working for me, I'm out. Personally, I feel like I have a certain degree of responsibility for everybody else having fun or not. So if the other people at the table are having a great time and I just am not totally into the game, I'll play. I'll give it my all. I'll give it my best. I want them to have fun.
Yep.
But even me, I'm a pretty mellow guy, I
You're
have quit a couple games.
You're a mellow fellow. I'm less of a mellow fellow, but I mean, and so Tilla has kind of added a couple of things here, like somebody being aggressive. Well, I think the the person with the biggest mouth maybe at the table could say to that person, "Hey, you're being a little aggressive here. So can we slow your roll?" And if the person is
Yeah,
not slowing their roll, you can say, "Well, okay, I think that this is probably not working for myself and maybe other people here. So maybe we should end the game. Let's clean up."
yeah,
if there's something going on that's making people feel uncomfortable, I think it's okay to say it. When people do have AP at a table, I'm the first one because I absolutely despise AP. I'm the first one to say, "Hey, I think you need to play a little faster because this is just really going too long." So,
sure.
and if people don't, I'm gonna say I'm putting a timer on you because everyone else is playing within 1 minute of their turn. You're taking 5 minutes, so timer's gonna be up. If you don't make a turn, we're just gonna pass you by. I think it's okay to call out when things are not going well, and everybody wants to have a good experience. That's why we play games. So,
Yeah.
interesting question, Tila.
And with the aggression thing, it really is, does the game call for it? Is this role playing? Is this just
Oh,
normal?
Of course.
Are we fighting each other? And again, it's gauging everyone else. If
Yeah.
everyone else at the table is having a great time, you should rethink your thoughts on the game. Like, is it me or is it really the whole group having a terrible time?
And that could be it, right? If it's literally just you, then on the other side, I mean, you either can say, well, everyone's having a good time, I'm going to deal. Or I guess you could say, this is just not working for me, guys. I'm sorry. I have to go. So I
Sure.
think the short answer is yes, it is okay to quit, but think about it before that becomes the thing.
Yeah, of course.
Tim Harema from Canada, he's at divine_justice on BGG. Kickstarter dollars raised vary widely from project to project, in part based on the cost of the game and the number of add-ons available. But how many backers is considered a successful campaign?
Oh, interesting.
That is, excuse me, is there a certain number of backers that you would like to see in order to continue to support a game going forward, i.e., must get X number of backers to consider putting up an expansion Kickstarter in the future. So he's actually kind of talking to it from the publisher side. He's saying, well, how many backers you have to see on your base game for the publisher to say, we'll do an expansion Kickstarter as well. Corey, do you have a number that you always say, well,
84,000 minimum?
that is not
84,000.
Correct. That is absolutely
That's
not the correct answer.
actually the number of units that Frosthaven did, which was the record-breaking Kickstarter.
Did they do 84,000 backers or units or whatever?
Backers.
That's huge. And so for games, that was the largest, but that's been broken by the books by Sanderson's books, right?
Sanderson's books were so far beyond. What I usually think about is the couple companies that do specialized publishing runs of low numbers, and the most famous is GMT with their P500 runs. So GMT Games will have an idea for a game, they'll put out there, are people excited about it? And if they get 500, they'll print a 500 run. So I think that would be the bare minimum. I think for an actual Kickstarter, if you wanted to make money and start to work on it, it would be somewhere the 500 minimum to a couple thousand would be where you'd get by.
Yeah, I mean, I think truly successful Kickstarters, it doesn't have to be not massive, but just successful, have to have at least a 4-figure backer number, so 1,000 backers. And certainly there's always a chance that the Kickstarter did X units, X backers, but the game did better later in distribution, and the groundswell of enthusiasm for the game was so big that you do another Kickstarter for the expansion, and of course you include the base game as an option, and the thing does big. Good example of that one is Thunder Road Vendetta, my #1 game of last year, which did a very good Kickstarter, but not like phenomenal. But the groundswell, people playing it like, oh my God, this game is so good. And now they're bringing out an expansion, and of course you can get it again. And I guarantee that Kickstarter is going to do better than the first Kickstarter, which did $1 million plus, I think, or at least close to $1 million.
You also get this interesting effect that there's a lot of games that are very, very fun to play, but don't show well on video or on image, especially card games and things like that. And they notoriously have poor Kickstarters because looking at it, it doesn't look exciting. But once people get it in their hands and play with it, they sell tremendously well. We usually talk about them as sleeper hits and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Julian from Japan, he's at Juju Latre. I don't hear any of you specifically rave about East Asian games. I don't think that's true.
I rave about them all the time.
Which seem to be the rage in the U.S. since some years already. That said, do you have a favorite game from our part of the world, or maybe one from here that you sure hoped you would have published if you have the chance? So let me take that one, Corey, at least first. I think that we, and I know I have said on this podcast and publicly, that some of the best, most innovative, those kinds of most innovative games are actually coming out of Asia, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan. These designers out there are doing odd things, really interesting things. So I absolutely I don't agree with your premise, Julian. However, I'll say it for the record, East Asian games and all those countries and others are doing some great things, and they are getting picked up in small quantities, not as much as they should.
Well, I think they're going more mainstream because a big majority of all plays library now is taken from the Asian market. And these are little games that are selling very well. Their Kickstarters are all doing very well. We've got the story of Scout, which was Spiel winner and was doing amazingly well.
Spiel nominee,
And
Corey made it
nominee,
famous.
and that's Oink Games. Personally, I always go to Mandu Games out of Korea, and they have the weirdest games. So anything by them, I look for. Emperor S4 did really big strides with Hanamikoji, which had a redo, and that Kickstarter did well. Picked up by Pencil First, I think. Um, so there's a whole bunch of these Asian market games that kind of sneak in under a big publisher in the West. Um, Even Cat in the Box. Cat in the Box originally was a Japanese release, and Bezier, it's arguably their bestseller now.
It is a big seller outside. Their biggest maybe outside of the Werewolf series, but yes,
Oh, true,
absolutely,
true.
absolutely. People are out there. People are going after the games from Asia. So this question is insane. Thank you, Willis Losey, at not pro tour at not pro tour. Okay, insiders, close your eyes and imagine you are seated at the final table at the World Series of Board Gaming, which I can't imagine because I'm not that good and I
I'm
would
a
never.
terrible gamer. I mean, I think nobody else showed up or something. So
However, nobody else. Well, these three other people showed up. You're going to
okay.
close your eyes and you're at the table with these three other people. To your right is the person that you've always wanted to game with, but have never had a chance. To your left is the person that you always seem to beat when you game. And finally, across the table sits an historical figure that you think that would have been an amazing gamer. What game are you playing, and who are the three other people at your table? Oh my God,
Oh
this is hard.
man,
All right.
this is a crazy question.
All right. So on the left is someone that I always beat. That's nobody. So there's a ghost on this side because there's zero chance that somebody out there is going to say, "Oh, Bonacor beats me at games all the time." I don't. I'm like Joe Average when it comes to like my win percentage, and some people say I suck. So that's
I'm gonna go with to my left is my good friend Karen Nobla, who's a designer of consumption. I haven't played a ton of games with her, but I seem to win. Um, but the reason she's there is I have the most fun playing games with her. I laugh the whole time. So I'm hoping that's who's to the left.
I just said nobody could possibly be on that side. Paula beats me constantly in things, and you beat me constantly in things. And on the right is the person I've always wanted to game with. Huh. Who do I've always wanted to game with, but I've never had the chance? Uh ooh, I just can't think of anybody that I'm just dying to game with that I haven't had chances. When I meet people, we game. We always do, right? Every time we go to a convention, it's like
Yeah.
we're gaming. Um, and
I
across from me, a historical figure
well,
though.
I'm gonna go with the always wanted to. I'm gonna put Shem Phillips there.
Okay.
He explains his game so well and he's so personable. I've always wanted to sit down at specifically one of his games with him.
A historical figure. Well, I have like great respect for a lot of uh the historical founding fathers, American revolutionary figures. So like Thomas Jefferson. If Thomas Jefferson was alive and I could see how he would be a gamer in modern gaming, that might be very interesting to me. So that was a crazy question, Willis, but
Yeah, for my
we
for my cross, I'm gonna go Richard Feynman. So
wow, Richard Feynman. That is an excellent, excellent choice, my friend. Uh
I just would love to have talked with him and things like that. I think that would be really cool.
Good choice. Good choice. Yeah. All right, everybody. that's it for questions for this week. Let's get over to play testing. So last week, Corey, I asked people, at which of these venues do you usually play board games? At which of them do you do most of your gaming? And then I put a bunch of choices in there: private groups, game stores,
Sure.
meetup groups, cons, electronically, like on BGA, or any other places. Corey, is there any trends there on how people are
Oh,
playing
it is
games?
overwhelming private groups.
Yeah, I did see that
Uh,
too.
Almost everybody said private groups and then threw in others, like, and also. So I liked William Bricker had
Bill,
conventions at home and in your mind. So apparently, number one, he's just playing games in his mind, which makes sense to me.
Bill is noted artist, worked for
Yeah.
me at Stronghold Games for the longest time, and
Oh,
we
okay, okay. I
that's
know Bill.
Bill Breaker. He's the man. He is the
He
man.
threw me with this William thing, gave him some degree of legitimacy. It
Yeah.
just absolutely threw me off.
Yeah, like you said, it's overwhelmingly in private groups. But Alexander Sakhanov, he actually said that I mostly play at friendly local game stores. This way I can stay in
Mm,
touch with new releases without the need to clog my shelves. I thought that was a very interesting way of doing it. Other than that, it's an excellent way to meet great new people and help them get accustomed in the hobby space. Overall, it's a fantastic place to leave the comfort of your own home and broaden your horizons. I thought that was a great answer. I wish I had a friendly local game store. So I just don't have any, even close to where I live. So it just never happens for me.
yeah. I mean, Josh Washer, kind of gave the general answer that we're seeing a lot here. Private groups, winner by far, mostly my house, sometimes others. And then game stores, done this a number of times the last few years, always by special events. And then conventions. And Josh talks about a local annual con's been going on for 5 years. Um, so I think that's been the consensus among almost everybody is at home and then game stores and then conventions when you can get to them.
Valentin Cretin, he says that my gaming is split between teaching games as a volunteer at public events, 70%, and actually playing games, 30%,
Nice.
with other volunteers twice a month, friends once a month, and coworkers Tuesdays at lunchtime. So he's got, I've been trying to pick ones that are outside of the realm of in your house. So that's two people
Sure.
that definitely were outside. So thank you everybody for giving us some of that feedback. Corey, finally, you put a question out here. You've been
I've
working
been putting up like I think the last 10 questions I put up 7 or 8 of them.
wrong. Okay, but what is your question for this week?
Well, let's see. I entered into the outline for this particular podcast. I'm going to say 5-10 minutes before it was to air. And
That's
Steve
right.
still had just a string of question marks for the question this week. He really, lots of planning here, Steve.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. What's your question, wise
My
guy?
question. All right. Promo cards have become a very popular marketing tool. How do you feel about promos? Do you seek them out for the games you own, or do you ignore them completely?
So, for me, um, I don't go out of my mind to get promo cards. Now, having said that, if it's a one of my like 10 rated games, then I'm absolutely going to go find them and I want them in my game, right? So War of the Ring, the card game, was probably the
Sure.
last one that I actually made sure that I got those promos. I mean, when
Has the tree beard.
well, no, that's the actual game, right? The actual game has that promo in it, but the card game, when they
Oh, yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
they released it, they put out a couple of promos, which I pre-ordered anyway. So with the pre-order, you got them, but I would have gone out of my way to make sure I got them. So my answer is I think promos are great. I mean, certainly from the publisher's perspective, we want to do them because we want them to promote the game. Whether we give them away for free, whether we charge for them, whatever the case may be. You're at the convention, you buy the game, you get the promo. That's usually a lot of things go like that. So uh, I I will go after promos that are for my favorite games. How about you?
When I first started in the industry, I was very excited about the promos. I would try to get every promo that existed for every game that I owned. And I ended up with a pretty big collection of promos. Later, uh, I just found myself using the promos less and less. They were cool to look at. So now I have a big box of promos that I leave open when people come to the house and people game at the house. I have a little box, a little giveaway box of extra promos that I have. So I think they're fascinating. I think you and I both have been on a couple promos at this point, and it's always super exciting to say, hey,
I
got a
have
promo of Corey.
I have my mug on a bunch of different things. Actually, yeah, promos
Yeah,
promos for like Wise Wizard games for one. Thank you for putting me on one of your cards there for their their fantasy card game. And I've been in Prelude, my actual photograph picture,
sure.
smoking a cigar, lighting it with a 25 mega credit
Well, you had
bill.
to sleep with the publisher, but
I was the publisher, so yes, I slept with the publisher. There you go. So what do you think out there? Promo cards, you like them? You don't like them? You go out of your way? You don't care? Tell us about it. I have just posted that question because Corey does not know how to do it over there in our guild on
yeah,
Board Game
I'm
Geek.
incapable of using computers.
He's incapable. Find our play testing thread for this question and post your answer, and we'll get to it next week. In the meantime, let's get to the final scoring. Thank you so much for listening. Help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts or watch Board Games Insider on the Podfather of Gaming YouTube channel. You want to be part of this podcast? You can. Just ask us questions for our strategy and tactics segment by posting them in the correct thread in our guild on Board Game Geek, and also answer our question to you from our playtesting segment by going to our guild on Board Game Geek and looking for the thread with this episode's question. Check out our websites, which are portalgamesus.com, podfathergaming.com, dicetowerdish.com, play2zgames.com.
Woohoo!
We're all over social media, so interact with us, please. On Facebook, please like our pages, which are Board Games Insider, Portal Games US, Podfather Gaming, and Play to Z Games. You can speak directly to Ignacy, Corey, Steven on Instagram and Twitter/X, Portal Games US, Podfather Gaming, Dice Tower Dish, and the active YouTube channels are Portal Games Studio, the Podfather of Gaming, and Above Board TV. Can't believe the stuff that you guys are putting out. It is so funny. I mean, I keep saying it, not
Yeah.
because you're my buddy and I'm looking directly at you, but dude, the stuff from Iceland that you put out,
The volcano video is right around the corner.
but just the stuff sitting in playing games while you're eating
Well,
is you
and actually, we're just finishing the editing on. We played the board game Rakeholt in the town of
of
Rakeholt,
course you did. Of
and
course.
that one's coming out pretty soon. That one looks really good.
We would really like to see you in person at an upcoming convention in 2024. So please, if you see us there, come out, talk to us. Let's play a game. Let's get a drink. Let's get lunch. We love to chat and hang out with you. Board Games Insider was professionally edited by Joshua Bowman from Tabletop Submarine Podcast. He's here at Tantrum Con. I look forward to seeing Joshua.
All right.
If you want your podcast edited by Joshua, you can reach him to discuss at tabletopsubmarine@gmail.com. And also that great voice you hear doing the intro, outro, and in-between segments is that of Ray Greenlee. He can be contacted to do your voiceover work at raygreenleevoiceover.com. Anything you want to tell our audience as we leave? Anything, Corey? Anything? As I type anything? No.
Anything? Well,
It's okay.
speaking of above board, we are prepping to do a month-long trip through Europe.
Okay.
So we are planning where we're going to go and where we're going to film.
That's awesome. That's going to be my invitation to be on with you guys, right?
Sure, come to Europe.
I will. I've never asked you to pay my way. I will be there on my own dime. As long as I'm on camera with Leaf The guy's hysterical. Travis
He
Oates,
is
he's
so
okay.
good.
He's all right. Even you, maybe. You're pretty funny too sometimes.
Oh, thank you. You're too nice.
I'm too nice or something.
You're
All
too
right.
nice. I'll keep you away from the celebrities.
Keep me away from the talent, the real talent. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.
See you, everybody.